Is the Garmin better than the Apple Watch? Or is the Apple Watch better than the Garmin? Today we're going to be comparing the Apple Watch Ultra 2 with the Garmin Venu X1. The reason why I wanted to compare these two is they're actually more similar than you would think. Before we talk about the differences between both of the watches, I just want to talk about how I got to the point of wearing two different watches at the same time. I first had the Apple Watch, and I've had an Apple Watch now for over 10 years. Just go to my older video where I actually reviewed this watch after a long-term period. But in short, I've been wearing Apple Watches for 10 years. The main reason why I still have them is just I've got so much data on it about me, my running, and my whole health attributes. Just don't give up all that data, just keep going within that ecosystem. That's the main reason why I still keep an Apple Watch today. Of course, I also like the watch itself, but it's mainly because I don't want to lose 10 years worth of data that I've gathered for that time. The Garmin is relatively new. I started with the Fenix 7, and after that I ended up getting the Venu X1. The reason why I got a Garmin was because I just started to run a lot more and I wanted to see what it was like wearing the watches. My father also actually got a Garmin watch as well, so then we could both track each other within the Garmin ecosystem, and that's the main reason why I still use the Garmin. It's just to follow people that don't really have an Apple Watch, and then I can also upload my activities into the Garmin ecosystem as well. So that's the reason why I've got both these watches. Now let's talk about the differences between them two. There are actually way more similarities than there are differences. They both have a sapphire display, meaning that it is a lot more scratch resistant when you hit it against doors, brick walls, or anything else that's harder than glass, really. They both use titanium in the bodies, but in a different way. The Apple Watch uses it for the whole casing and leaves the back glass. Whilst with the Garmin, it is actually a full plastic body, but the plate at the bottom is made of titanium. So there are subtle differences, but they're made very similarly to each other. They're both a fitness tracker, so of course they're going to measure the basics, such as heart rate, blood oxygen monitoring, GPS tracking as well, and your day-to-day fitness movements. So this includes calories, how many hours you've been standing or walking for. Both of these, which I think is a very important feature for me anyway, the ability to listen to music on both of them. I used to have Spotify, but I recently switched to Apple Music just because I prefer the audio and the lossless audio features that they give from them. So that's made it quite difficult for me to listen to music on the Garmin, as the Garmin doesn't support Apple Music at this time, but it does support Spotify. Whilst the Apple Watch can support Apple Music, Spotify, and any other music streaming services such as Tidal, it is a lot easier to use the Apple Watch, not just because of all the different streaming services you could use, but also if you have AirPods, then it's a lot easier to connect to them through that as well. The form factor on both of these are very similar. Garmin actually has a 51mm display on the front, whilst the Apple Watch has a 49mm display. The Garmin is definitely a bit lighter, pretty much due to it being a lot thinner. The Garmin is not just thinner, which makes it a lot lighter, but it's also made of a lot of plastic. So the outside bezels are made of plastic, whilst the bottom is titanium, which helps it lose a lot of weight. Whilst the Apple Watch is a lot heavier, with it only really being made of titanium as well as glass. This does add quite a bit of heft to the Apple Watch, but it's not a huge difference. Also, a nice feature that the Garmin has is that it has a flashlight, so that's really handy to look for things, and it's also very bright as well with different brightness intensities. And of course, one thing that makes the Apple Watch a lot more appealing is just the app support that the Apple Watch has. So a lot of people own a lot of Apple Watches. A lot of developers would like to be a part of the Apple Watch ecosystem just so that people can interact with their apps a lot easier. The Apple Watch has a lot of benefits that the Garmin just doesn't really have. The connectivity with Apple products is of course very good. Just having everything talk to the iPhone and having the Apple Watch also talk to the MacBook. For example, the MacBook can open with the watch and you don't have to unlock it with putting a password or your fingerprint in. The phone is the same, so you could actually also unlock the phone with the Apple Watch itself. If you get a notification with your phone, it will show up on your watch just like the Garmin will, but you can react to messages, you can react to emails as well, and you can just reply to people with the Apple Watch, whilst you can't really do that with the Garmin itself. The battery life on the Apple Watch is only 2 days, sadly, so it's nothing compared to the Garmin. The Garmin has just got way more battery life. It seems to be way more efficient as well, and that's with the always-on display on for the Apple Watch. But even if you turn that off, to be honest, it doesn't give you a lot more battery. So then you would look a bit more into 2.5 to 3 days of battery if you had the always-on display on. It doesn't make a huge difference turning it off, whilst with the Garmin it makes a massive difference. So it has a much longer battery life with 8 days if you don't use the always-on display. I believe the battery is 2 days when you leave the always-on display on, but I never use the always-on display because I would prefer to just have 8 days of battery life instead of 2. So I use both of them on the daily. I wear them both at the same time. I've actually got 2 10 lines, so it's kind of ridiculous. The accuracy is actually really good on both. Both of them show the heart rate within 2 or 3 beats per minute of each other, which is really impressive. Whilst the distance does fluctuate quite a bit for me. If I do a 10-kilometer run, I do notice that there's a 200-meter difference between one watch and the other, and it's not always the same. Sometimes the Apple Watch is a bit more ahead or even further behind than the Garmin. So it's not consistently the same, but that could also be due to wearing one on one wrist and one on the other wrist. If you turn a lot of left-hand corners or a lot of right-hand corners, that the measurements could go off based off of that. The Garmin is more targeted to like runners specifically. This one doesn't have the ultra wideband, it just has the normal GPS. But if you're not going to be running around in the city or in very mountainous areas, then this shouldn't be an issue for you, and it should be pretty accurate already anyway. The ultra wideband is mainly used for tall buildings or tall mountains so that it can more accurately grab the GPS data and know where you are within streets or in between certain mountains or hills. I think to conclude, both watches definitely have their place. Garmin is really heavily targeted towards runners and activity people, where they could go off for days on end without seeing any power or electricity, constantly be recording something, meaning that this is really for a power user. The Apple Watch is really targeted more towards a lifestyle person, so someone who would really use it on the day-to-day and also like a fashion piece really, whilst also having the functionality of being able to be a very good fitness tracker. Of course, it doesn't last as long as the Garmin. If you're going to be coming home every day from work or something and you know you can always charge this thing, that doesn't really bother me too much. Even though it would be great to have like 4 or even 5 days battery life on this, it doesn't bother me to the point where I have to suddenly jump ship to this. The best watch for me personally would, I think, still be the Apple Watch, purely because I'm already so deep into the ecosystem. Using this as a smartwatch more than a running watch is what makes the difference between both of them. I like the way that I could interact with my car, for example, with this. I also like interacting with all my home features, music, and everything with the Apple Watch, whilst the Garmin just won't have that functionality, and not even sure if it ever would have that functionality. So thank you guys for watching this video. If you liked it, please just go down and give it a comment, maybe even a like or a dislike if you really didn't like it. And I'll see you guys in the next one.